We are doing on page 108, number 12, which is Fish Haven. So let's go up top here. So this is page 108, number 12. And you should always include this on the top. I'm not going to, for timing constraints, not go in here, but you would put in here, this program is going to calculate blah, 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 the number of gallons and so on and so forth. So we need to determine what kind of variables do we need. That's the IPO again. So it tells us we need the length, the width, and the height. So we can, in this particular case, length really isn't specified as whether or not it should be an integer, and same thing with width and height. But for our sake, let's just make it all integers. So we're doing integer, and we're going to do length, height, and width. So you would make sure that you comment at least one of these, and you're just going to go length of fish tank. So these, by doing this, it's kind of self-explanatory that this is going to be the height of the fish tank, the width of the fish tank. If you want to feel comfortable, feel free to be able to take care of putting it there as far as height of fish tank, width of fish tank. So then it tells us we need to calculate the number of gallons of water, and we need to divide by the 232 cubic inches in a gallon. So we are obviously getting in the length in inches. So here we would put length in inches of fish tank. And then we are going to put it on a separate line because we may change this to a float later on, depending upon what we need to do. And we're going to do a constant. So now we want a constant integer, and we'll call it, let's see, it says 231 cubic inches in a gallon. So we'll just call it cubic inches. I guess I spelled it wrong. I'm a very terrible inches
cubic
per gallon. And that will be 233. And of course you would comment and explain what that is. So the first thing we need to do is see out what is the length of the tank. Notice the question mark, a space, the, and then no end line so that we do the CN on the next same line. So I actually did the extraction, insertion after. So let's do the length, L-E-N-G-T-A. So that takes care of this. See out what is the width. And you would probably put in inches. So when you're giving information to the user has to be totally clear as to what they want. So you get it in here, and you tell them the width in inches. They should be able to determine that based upon what you have. So we're doing the getting the width, and then see out what is height. And see in height. Now, when you're doing these things, you're going to all of a sudden determine, oh, I need something else in here. In this particular case, would be volume. It wouldn't be area, it would be volume, but if it was area, that's okay too. So, see in height. So let's add a new one here. And we'll call them volume. 0. Now this is something totally different. And just do volume of the tank. And I did spell inches wrong, which is not a shock for me. So how are we going to calculate the volume? Well, it's nothing more than the length times the height times the width, or the length times the width times the height, however way you want to do it. So let's just go that volume equals the length times the width times the height. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the program and test to make sure that our calculation is correct. So we'll need something easy. Obviously, spelling does not come easy for me. Let's try this one more time. And just to be on the safe side, we'll put in our end out. Alright, so in this particular case, let's run it and see what happens. And we'll do something simple so we can figure it out in our head, and maybe somebody can go with a calculator and double check it. Because you always want to double check in here. So what is the length of the tank? Let's do 5. And the width is 10. So that would be 50. And then let's do 15. So 50 times 15, I believe, is 750. So let's see what happens.
So it says a calculator.
Okay. So now let's do something a little bit more challenging. Let's try 12, 8, and 17. Now I need you, so that would be 96 times 17. Alright, so somebody with a calculator, check that out. And I made a serious error in coding, and I'm hoping that you guys will pick up on it.
Well, we're already given how many cubic inches per gallon, no?
Well, that's what, right now we're just checking to see if the volume is correct. So I need somebody with a calculator to double check that. Otherwise I will. So we have no volunteers, so I will do it. So it's 12, 8, and 17. 1732 and 1632, 1630. All right, so that's good. So now, can anybody take a look at this and tell me an issue? I'll give you a hint. It involves division. How are we going to calculate the number of gallons? I'll tell you how we're actually going to do it. It's your lucky day. We're going to divide the volume by because that gives us cubic inches, by the cubic inches per gallon. So what type of variable is the volume? Should be able to look at it and tell.
Say that again?
What type of variable, what data type is the volume? Take a look at it. What did I declare it as? Here's your hint.
It's an integer.
It's an integer. Yeah. How do you know it's an integer? Because it's declared under integers. What type of variable, data type, are cubic inches per gallon?
That's a constant.
But what type of data type?
Integer.
Integer.
Constant integer.
So
Okay.
now we're going to divide volume by
Oh,
231.
0.0.
So we can't do that. So what we need to do is we need to declare this as a float or a double. But remember that, and notice that's why I declared it on a separate line, because I knew I was going to have to change it later. But remember one thing, you're saying, well, why couldn't we just do a typecast and do, say, like float volume divided by cubic inches per gallon? And the reason you can't do that is because gallons is an integer. So it would truncate whatever the decimal points are. So let's go back in now. We have it here. So we're going to calculate the gallons equals parentheses. Now, we need to determine that we have integer division, so we need to calculate at least one of them has to be a float. So let's just make this a float, and we'll make this volume. Divided by cubic inches per gallon. And then we'll just put in C out the number of gallons in the tank is gallons. Now, we're not doing any formatting just yet. So we're not sure how it's going to look, but we'll do this and see what the outcome's going to be. Then we'll go back in and use the functions that lets us with IOmanip to make it look nice and pretty. And we'll do an end out here. Alright, so we're going to use the same ones that we did before, which unfortunately I don't remember. Hopefully you guys will remember. I think I did 12, 8, and 17. Alright, so we have 706,494. Now, bear in mind that don't be shocked if you get something to the E in there. So the way you fix that, if you get that, now this particular time we did not get it. Do we really want to know 7.06494 gallons? Do we want to know that? That again, that's kind of your call. So we have the IOmanip. So what we're going to do here is we're going to type in cout fixed. That means we want to do it in fixed decimal format. And how many decimal places do we want? So we just type in set precision. And just think of set precision is saying this is how many decimal places I want. So if you're familiar with Excel, when you go to format and it says number and 2 or number and 3, that is like the set precision. So in this particular case, we'll put in, let's just say 3 for the heck of it. No reason other than that's what I felt like doing. So let's try it again and see what happens. So what is the length? We did 12, 8, and 17. And 7065. So that looks pretty good. So questions on this? Going once, going twice. Now remember, I did not do any comments in here. So you would want to put your comments in here. You know, something like the volume is calculated by multiplying this, and you would put in for a comment here, how many cubic inches are there in a gallon. Some of it, in this particular cases, are really pretty cut and dry as to what these variables mean and the calculations are. Others are not, and you'll see that as we start doing. But if you get into the habit of doing them in the beginning, it'll make your life so much easier. So let me put this up here and tell me if there's any questions. Let me get rid of these extra spaces. You always want to put in little spaces here and there, but only one. So this kind of separates the input here, the calculations here, and the output in here. So, input, processing, output. That's your IPO. So, questions, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Nope, awesome. You guys are a good group. So let me end this video.